This is the Fix Your Sciatica podcast. Let's talk about footwear. What are the best shoes for me? What are the best shoes for this specific activity? Now, you go on YouTube, you Google, and you search the best shoes for a specific activity, whether it be walking, playing sports, lifting at the gym. You're going to get a lot of articles, just like when you're searching for the best exercise for a condition. You're going to get a lot of articles that are going to have various different recommendations. And that is fantastic because we live in the world of information, and it actually allows us to get some good, solid knowledge so we can make informed decisions. But in some cases, it can actually be extremely overwhelming. And how do we navigate the world of so much information, and how can we actually make it apply to our personal and individualized scenarios? So today's episode is actually going to be talking about specifically how can we actually find the best shoes for you. And it's going to be just based on two major principles, which is going to be a matter of comfort and then also a matter of functionality. And why are shoes so important to begin with? Well, let's just say for the fact that prior to the development of the modern age, we didn't really have shoes to begin with. Oftentimes our our ancestors walked around this earth without shoes. But then as we walked around a little bit more, as we traversed the continents, we needed some foot protection because of the extreme heat, the rocks, as well as the extreme cold. And that's where you actually had the development of shoe wear. And then over the years, over the centuries, footwear has actually evolved to the point where it is, in fact, allowing us to have a little bit more comfort, a little bit more versatile, and applies to the activities that we do on a daily basis. But I'm going to give you a heads up. I hate the shoe industry. There's so much money on marketing and trying to make these shoes, these pieces of clothing, really expensive and also extremely complicated. And the great news is the fact that it truly doesn't, right? So let's talk about the first component, which is actually comfort. You have to be able to put the shoe on and say, oh, this actually feels really nice on my foot. Now, there's going to be a lot of different materials that are out there. You're going to have Lycra, you're going to have canvas, you're going to have leather. Really, you should be able to put this shoe on, and it should feel as if you were made for that shoe in the first place. And later on in this episode, I'm going to talk about some of my shoe recommendations. But for me, that material that actually felt the best for me was actually canvas. It was actually something that I often wear in my everyday shoes, which is going to be my Vans. And really the key is you have to put it on and it says, wow, this actually feels quite nice. And so from there, if we're looking at like, say, the surface or the material, oftentimes I'll often get asked, actually, do I need to get a shoe with a lot of support? And the truth of the matter is that support in a shoe is entirely subjective and marketable as well. Hear me out. Sometimes you'll actually have these companies say you're going to have an extra supported shoe. And what that means is that they're actually creating a stiffer shoe, minimizing any sort of extra movement in the shoe itself. And you'll often see that when you're, we'll say from the spectrum of support, we're looking at something like the Nike Free Runner, which is kind of like running with a sock. It's like a sock with a little bit of cushion underneath, which I used to run with. And then you have, say, the very stiff leather material, which actually is going to be providing maximal support. But really, again, regardless of the level of support, the key is actually ensuring when you put the shoe on that it actually feels comfortable, which then actually leads on to the next part of it. Should I get a harder sole or a softer sole? And really, it's dependent on how your body feels. I know some people who, when they put on a very soft sole, it feels normal and they feel fantastic in it. On the other hand, they put on a hard sole, they feel like they want to chop their feet off. For me, I prefer something in the middle, something that has a little bit of give, but something that does give me an opportunity to get some feedback from the ground so I can actually know exactly where my foot is at in space. And so, again, that is going to be based on comfort. I think it's important for people to understand that even though you can buy shoes online, and even though you may have been using wearing the same shoe for a long period of time, there's always footwear that is coming out every single year. That's kind of like the manufacturer's job, is to consistently produce new items so then that way they can continue to maintain your attention. This episode is brought to you by the Patient Advocate Program. Are you tired of not having support between your rehab sessions? Introducing the Patient Advocate Program, and we're focused on your recovery, and we're offering you 24/7 access to a doctorate of physical therapy. Stop waiting in line to be seen and stop spending hours doing long exercise programs. Imagine being able to get all of your care delivered straight to your phone. Best of all, it's affordable. We believe everyone deserves top-notch relief without breaking the bank. So why wait? Take control of your health today and visit ptpatientadvocate.com and book your free call with our experts. So it is in fact important for you to be able to put these shoes on and walk around. And do I think that you need to actually break in your shoes for 2 to 3 weeks before it actually starts to feel comfortable? I think the only condition would be if you're wearing leather shoes. Leather shoes have an opportunity to stretch out a little bit. So of course you do need to in fact break them in a little bit more. But if you're using more of the synthetic materials, canvas, the stretching material, anything that's going to be done in an athletic shoe, I think that it's important that you put the shoe on and you feel like you're ready to go. You're ready to play the next sport. You're ready to walk 3 to 5 miles without having to worry that you are going to develop a blister on your heel, on the ball of your foot, or on your Achilles. And then the next question is, so should I get high tops or low tops? And this is 100% based on personal preference. I know a lot of people who prefer having high tops because they appreciate the ankle support. I myself never really liked high tops. I found that it was too restrictive on my ankle. And realistically speaking, when you're walking, you want to make sure that you have sufficient ankle range of motion so you can lift your foot up off the ground, but you can also push off as you're taking each individual step. So high tops, low tops, it's all an individualized preference. And I wish I could say that there are specific aspects of the shoe that you need that will allow you to feel good and allow you to feel supported, but everybody's human body is different. And what that means is that the experiences that we go through on a daily basis is going to be different from person to person, which is all the more reason for us to be able to try these shoes on and actually say, wow, this shoe was made for me, or I was made for this shoe. And if you put a shoe on and you're saying, I don't like this, you have no reason to buy that shoe or invest in that specific shoe for you to wear. The second component outside of comfort is functionality. Now, I do have a couple pairs of shoes because each shoe will represent a specific occasion. So you have to ask yourself, what are the demands of your activity? Dress shoes, for example. Okay, I have dress shoes, but if I'm going to be using these dress shoes because I'm going to be at an event where I'm going to be standing up a little bit longer, that's going to be a matter of you want dress shoes that might be a little bit more flexible. And again, something that you can see yourself standing in for long periods of time. If you're going to be playing soccer, yeah, it does make sense for you to actually get a soccer cleat or whatever you're going to be using on turf, but it's going to be focusing on meeting the demands of what you're trying to accomplish. I have a pair of dress shoes. I have a pair of everyday shoes. I have a pair of gym shoes. And then being that I live in Northern California, I have about 2 to 3 pairs of Birkenstocks because when you're living in Northern California, you need to wear Birkenstocks because it's just a normal part of being a Northern California resident. So it's going to be functionality and comfort. And it is actually very important for you to be able to identify what you need. And the entire shoe purchasing experience can be overwhelming. You go on Amazon, you go on any other page, you go to individual shoe menu websites, and there's a million shoes out there. Which one is going to be the best for you? And my biggest suggestion is the following. Get a couple, try them on. What's really nice is that if you're working with an online retailer, most of the time their return policy is pretty lax, which gives you the opportunity to put it on, see if it works, and then if it doesn't, you can always send it back. One thing that often gets overlooked is actually going to the shoe store. Now, most shoe stores, you go to a running store, they're going to try to sell you on some more expensive stuff. They might actually have you go through a gait analysis as well. And I think those gait analysis, those running analysis features are fantastic. I think the major drawback is the fact that they'll use this results as a way to drive you into a shoe that might not necessarily be made for you. They're going to say, oh, you have a pronated foot, so you're going to need something with an arch support. But we don't necessarily know, unless you've been evaluated, we don't necessarily know, why is your foot collapsing in the first place? Is it the fact that you have a true fallen arch? Is it the fact that your knees have a tendency to buckle in? Is it the fact that your glutes are weak? Or is it the fact that you just have a tendency to shift your weight onto the inner edges of your feet? And we can simply just change that up by shifting the weight onto the outer edges of your feet. So the key when it comes to trying out all these shoes is to, in fact, again, identify the functionality, what you're trying to accomplish with this shoe. But then also the second part, the most important part, is comfort. And I think it's very important because of the fact that you're probably going to be spending a couple hours in these shoes. I know for myself, when I'm at home, I walk around barefoot. Sometimes when it's really cold, I'm wearing socks. But it is important that if you're going to be spending a fair amount of time in these shoes, they should be comfortable and they should meet the demands of your sport. So it doesn't need to be complicated, although the shoe market industry makes it extremely complicated. Listen to you. How does it feel? Does it feel great? And really focus on your instincts in regards to, does the shoe fit you? Here we are at the end of the episode. And the question is, well, actually, what shoe do I recommend? So there are 3 major shoes that I recommend. I mean, 4. Number 1 is Birkenstocks, obviously. I love them. It allows you to spread your toes out a little bit. But then when it comes to shoes, when it comes to exercise shoe, and in a kind of like a general all-purpose shoe, if I'm going to go hiking, I'm a huge fan of the Innovate shoe, INNOV-8. They're like a minimalist training hiking company. The one that I like mostly is the F-Lite 245 cross trainers. They have that both men's and women's. I've been using them for the past 5-6 years, and I don't really see any sort of need to actually go anywhere else but using this shoe. And then for the everyday walk around shoe, I'm a huge fan of the basic Vans slip-on, or you can go the basic Vans lace-up. You don't need to go any sort of fancy stuff with the Vans shoes. They're pretty classic for a reason. Or if the Van aesthetic doesn't look nice to you, you can actually end up transition. I also recommend the Keds walking shoe as well with laces. And so if you would like to see those recommendations, I'm actually going to be putting the link of an affiliate link in the show notes so you can take a look. But again, shoe purchasing doesn't have to be stressful. All you need to do is focus on comfort and versatility. Thank you so much for tuning in. We hope you got some help from today's podcast. And for more info, check us out at ifixyoursciatica.com. Have a fantastic and pain-free day. No patient-therapist relationship is formed by listening to this podcast. We are not providing medical advice, and all information should be confirmed by a medical provider.